Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. This is season number 10. It's brought to you by OpenTable. OpenTable is a global leader in restaurant tech, helping more than 60,000 restaurants worldwide fill 1.7 billion seats a year. OpenTable's world-class technology empowers restaurants to focus on what matters most: your team, your guests, and your bottom line, while enabling diners to discover and book the perfect restaurant for every occasion. With best-in-class table management software and valuable 24/7, 365 in-person support for restaurants, why not schedule a demo today? Visit opentable.co.uk/restaurant-solutions to get started. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the next episode of Tech on Toast podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Janes, Managing Director from Bills. Tom, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Chris.
You've just missed our pre-chat about DIY.
I know.
Basically, we talked about being blind, doing DIY, and nearly killing our children, which is just, I think we've reached middle age, my friend.
That would genuinely be, if anyone wants to give me a punishment, it is to build furniture. Like, nothing makes me angry.
But you'll do it though, won't you?
Yeah, well, I have no choice.
Yeah.
I have a lovely but very forceful wife.
Me too.
So,
She's not Welsh, is she?
No, she's Irish.
But yeah, I just had the weekend of building some new bedside cabinets, and I just wouldn't let it beat me. And John, my daughter did. I love her to bits, but when you snap off, if you accidentally snap one of the bits in the wood, and then that's it. Yeah,
it's gone.
She stepped on it and broke it. And I just looked at her and she just left the room. She kind of just backed out the room slowly. And I was just like, I can see how people go over the edge now.
Then there needs to be some middle-aged version of Survivor where they put a load of mid-40s guys and make them do furniture, because I think that is as angry as I ever get, building flat-pack furniture.
Nothing to do with labour, food costs, nothing. It's flat-pack furniture.
I have to tell all the family to go out. It's one of those I cannot be because it's so intense, the concentration. So yeah.
Yeah, very quickly I replaced the TV on a wall with my father-in-law about 10 years ago. And he said, I'll do it. I'll drill through the wall. And he drilled through the electric mains, and this little puff of smoke just popped through the plasterboard. And he was like, right, what we're going to do? And he reached down. He's Welsh, so he's made of different stuff. He just reached down into the wall, pulled up the cables, and welded them. Someone lives in that house now. I'm just.
You're going to read about it in about 5 years.
Yeah, they're still alive. I drove past every week. I just drive past just to check it's still there. Anyway, Tom, look, lovely to have you in. I appreciate end of your day.
No problem.
And it's been a busy time, right? Bills have been
doing
lots of stuff. Tell us a little bit about before we get into Bills. Let's talk about your journey and how you got to this point.
So I suppose the standard hospitality job. 16, got a job collecting glasses in a local pub, and I think the first real step up, I suppose, in hospitality was with Henry J. Beans. You're probably too young to remember.
No, I know. Broad Street, next door to the Revolution.
Yeah. It was. I did my training there, and I started as a bartender in Bristol, and then worked up through the ranks in Henry J. Beans and got up to, that was my first general manager role.
They were great, weren't they?
Amazing.
I don't know why. Did they were quite specialists in cocktails or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 2 bars in Bristol then on Whiteley's Road, and it was us and a place called Henry Africa's. And they were like the investment in training, talking about sort of lessons you learnt now. I always remember, I was a bartender, and the training manager came down from London for 2 days to do an assessment before I was allowed on the bar. And that investment, it was 3 months before I was allowed on the bar. And then he came down and did a 2-day assessment over a weekend to see whether I could take. I always remember had to take £1,000 on Station 5 on a Saturday night, and I was as nervous as I've been.
What at college was the same. 12 weeks training.
Yeah,
you could not assistant manager, whatever role you were. You didn't get on the 12. That's a long time. Hard Rock was the same. 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, isn't it? How that's shrunk.
It's shrunk now to the detriment actually of both the team. I was bought in from that moment in terms of, obviously went to sort of uni, classic story where you start doing uni and then fall in love with bars and the bright lights of
and
working
the social that goes around it.
Exactly, and all that stuff. So then decided it was one of those, do I finish my degree or I've been offered bar manager, and took the bar manager role and went from there. But it was amazing as a sort of grounding. I always remember my first sort of general manager meeting. I was really nervous. We had to come down to London and meet Douglas, who was the CEO, and he was a sort of burly Scottish guy, really absolutely lovely, and sort of said, your P&L's fantastic. I won't do the accent. P&L's fantastic.
I thought you were going to go into that.
I nearly did. He's like, P&L's fantastic. And I remember thinking at the time, I don't have a clue about P&L's. Like, all you focused on was the team and the guest. And the P&L was just an output. And then, months later, someone explained how that worked. And you went, actually, we're doing really well. But it was just amazing that there wasn't that financial pressure. Obviously, different times in terms of the industry, and, how the cost base and all that stuff. But it was just obsessive with the product. The
You do
team,
wonder
the
though
guest.
if we behave like that again with the current pressures.
Yeah.
What the output might be.
Well, I think that's been a key thing we've taken into Bills.
Okay.
And when we kind of started, and we'll sort of get onto that, is really going back to what is the most, why are we here in hospitality? And yes, it is to make money, but profitability is an output of all the other elements of hospitality. And if you lose focus on the guest and the team, you don't have a business.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and the brands you're talking about and that time were just great. I mean, we used to, I think we used to use Henry J. Beans as our after party. Yeah. So we used to finish work at 2, and we'd finished at 2 a.m.
Well,
so you were
Birmingham had a 4 a.m. license.
That's why. We used to go.
Bristol was only 11 o'clock, and they used to be sort of. I remember all the managers in Henry J. Beans always used to be jealous of working in Bristol because you'd finish at 11, so you were on a Friday, Saturday night.
4:30.
Yeah, exactly. At Birmingham, you were getting home at sort of 6:30, sort of broken.
Oh my god.
So I remember the sort of training was baptism of fire.
Do you remember the name of the manager in Birmingham or not?
It's a guy called Bobby. He was a little guy called Bobby.
Yes.
And he was super sharp in his cocktails.
99, 2000,
2001 to 2004, 5, I was there.
That's when I was there.
The general manager was called Bobby. And actually, my GM in Bristol was Ryan Jakovides, who
really?
obviously involved in Pasture, F1
Arcade.
Arcade,
He's been
and
on
has
the
got his
pod.
own.
Yeah.
Has he? Yeah. So I've always kept in touch with him. He was, when I joined, I was on the bar. He was my bar manager, and then he was my GM when I had my first management position. So yeah, we knew each other well. From there.
This industry is so incestual.
I know.
I love it. So what happened after Henry J. Beans? Where'd you go?
I kind of tried out a load of independence. So I went over to Jersey for 2 years, worked for Jersey Brewery, did restaurants. Then I came back and worked for Revolution. And did a year at Revolution in Bristol as well. And absolutely loved that. Again, that was bars. And that was amazing. And sort of talking about what you take from their recognition and reward and buy-in was next level. To obviously, Henry J. Beans, amazing on the training, but the trips, I was there for a year. And we went to New York, huge staff
Revs
parties.
were the best, man.
It was incredible.
I genuinely think that, how everyone looks at Hawksmoor and all these guys and, and like they laud. Back then, Revs were probably, I think were top of the tree.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really pinpoint Absolute Shambles was a good reason, which was their
Remember
their
their
picture?
pictures.
That thing used to sort me out. No matter what mood I was in, I had that. I felt better.
It fixed everything, didn't it?
It was solving a big relationship issue I was in at the time. They had a knack that who were the two? Was it Roy? And I went for an interview with Revolution.
It was Roy and Neil.
That's
who are
right.
obviously now doing Mission Mars. Yeah.
And they took me to an interview in Manchester Locks. And I went downstairs and they were cartwheeling across the bar doing shots. And I was just like, what is this place?
I know.
But yeah, they were insane.
It was so much fun. But the buy-in in terms of the team. So that was the real thing in terms of every week was an incentive. You were always, it was fun and you were really well rewarded. You could win, probably before PlayStations, but it was whatever it was then. Sony Walkmans, Discmans and trips. Yeah. But it was just total buy-in. And so you were gunning for it as a team and it was so much fun. But I think that was the point. We sort of hit your late 20s and getting home at 6 in the morning, having lots of fun. Where then I sort of said, I'm going to do restaurants.
Yeah.
And I just
going to pivot over here. They finish earlier.
Exactly. It's going to be, it was more sort of, it was just going to be a short life if you're kind of doing 5 days a week.
It's exactly why I left Hard Rock. Same
yeah.
thing.
And if too much fun's possible, it genuinely was that. And sort of say, right, I'm going to have to settle down. I can't be doing this when I'm 35, 40. And
you wouldn't look as good as you do now.
That's very kind. Right? I think it's good lighting.
It's very good.
But and then Jamie's
Yeah.
came along and Simon Blagden, who'd obviously been running Browns in Bristol actually, and I joined to be GM Bath, which was the second site, and that was I'd done restaurants in Jersey, but that was again the training and the investment in food.
Yeah, you guys were a problem for me.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of rivalry.
Yeah,
wasn't
because we were great, but you guys were in like another. It was like this. Like a really shiny, big college who's on steroids kind of thing. That's what it felt like to me as an area. Like, I literally used to look at my site in Cardiff and then look at yours and go, I hate them. Because there's so many great, and a lot of the great people I'd worked with in Cardiff, for instance, all ended up at Jamie's.
Yeah.
A lady called Jackie, who I think we know.
Yeah.
I think there was like Kath Napton, all these girls I used to work with who means nothing to anyone listening in, but they were like your go-to people on the rota.
Yeah.
They all went to Jamie's.
We were unpopular when we did new openings because
Yeah.
you were literally getting every sort of town you went into, getting the best of the
Cream of
best
the
of the
crop.
wait staff
Yeah.
and chefs. And I look back on those. I did Bath, and then I always wanted to go back to Cardiff, which is sort of a hometown, and did the Cardiff opening. And the talent in that restaurant. What's been amazing is following everyone's journey.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll ever get that again in casual dining in terms of, if I look at that kitchen team, you know, the sort of your Saturday night A team, they've all gone on to have incredible careers in food and hospitality, and the same front of house, and it was really special.
I think that's one of the things we may have lost as well. I totally agree. Chris Poole was in here before, and I don't know if you know Chris.
Yeah. Chris
was my boss for a while at Colleges before I got promoted, and I was saying I was meeting you, and we were talking about the old days. And he said, look at all that team we had at the senior team at that time. Look at what they're all doing now, all running their own businesses, MD, whatever they might be. And I just wonder if that, because they do, you know, when people disperse and they become very successful, I wonder if that still happens from where we are now in the industry.
I don't
know why. Maybe it's a different world, as you say.
I don't know if the opportunities through pop-up, street food, social media, I don't know if actually working for one of the brands or the chains has that same appeal.
It's not as sexy as it
No,
was.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got other avenues to sort of earn your stripes and go from there. But it was, that was an amazing
Were you the
experience.
GM in Bath?
I was GM in Bath and then GM in Cardiff. Yeah, so I did the first year in Bath.
Was Colleges open then or not? Because we opened underneath you, didn't we?
Yeah, you opened while I think I'd moved to Cardiff by then.
Right.
I think you may have been 2009. We knew you were coming. I knew you were opening because Antonio Carluccio came in and gave me a roasting about how it should be doing all the dishes better, and then made me phone Gennaro.
Yeah,
Gennaro,
if anyone doesn't know, Gennaro and Antonio were great friends, and although very competitive.
Yeah.
And Antonio took me up to the deli in Jamie's when we'd opened Colleges underneath you.
Yeah.
And he took me upstairs and he went, Chris, I want to talk you through the deli. And I was like, well, the deli's over here. And he went, no, not ours, Jamie's. And I was like, oh, no, I don't think we should do that. And he said, no, Gennaro's, it's fine. So Gennaro was in the and they argued across in front of
I think I was there, so we must have been the two guys standing in the background looking very sheepish as the two Italians were going head to head.
Buying, I think it was olives or something, and she was like scooping them into or the member of staff was scooping them into the bowl for her.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're shit. They're shit. And Gennaro better than yours.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, just buy the olives.
I know.
But it was very funny.
I thought it was going to turn into like a bare-fisted fight, didn't you, on
Olive
the floor?
fights.
But it was, because I remember I took the food over to Antonio and he was like, what pasta? Have you used fresh pasta? Yeah, you should not be using fresh pasta with this sauce. It should be a dry pasta so it absorbs more sauce. And I was like,
and then word of the chef, it's your mate.
Yeah, exactly. And Gennaro was in the building and I remember this is going to be, I'm going to step out of this one and let those two guys
But,
sort it out.
you know, those kind of characters, that kind of passion that was around those two brands was just brilliant, right? I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I genuinely think it was life-changing for a lot of people who were in at that time in terms of, you know, gave them a passion and a love for food. You were working with so many talented, dedicated people.
Insane.
And you know, and everyone, as they do in hospitality, you all keep in touch, and now they're all over the world, all doing great things. And it was game changing for me in terms of, you know, I went from being interested in food and liking food to then that obsession where you sort of took it to the next level. And absolutely then loved it.
Was Bill's after Jamie's or did you?
No. I did. So I left Jamie's 2013 and then I did Copper Club. So various eateries, which has got Strada and Copper Club, and it was Hugh Osmond had recently bought Strada, and had just developed Copper Club, and then was growing Copper Club, and some of the Strada sites converted to Coppers, and that was a completely different journey with loads of lessons there, where Copper was a sort of all day casual dining,
great brand,
and then it had this nuclear light bulb moment, which we were just talking about earlier, where, you know, he was really passionate about outside space and the best use of that in terms of the British. You know, he'd always said the British love sitting outside. We've just got to create an environment where they can do that 365 days a year rather than 7. And that was where the igloos happened. And that I was ops director at the time.
Before your time, before the time.
Before sort of COVID and you know, everyone had these kind of outdoor pods. It was
before
first to market.
Oh, after the smoking ban, obviously.
It was after the smoking ban, yeah. But it was it was a real lesson in terms of the power of that shift to experiential dining, and actually good food and drink wasn't enough anymore. You needed to give something else, especially, and hype, and managing hype and living up to expectations. And it literally, I remember it was like, I imagine the first time that the igloos went live, luckily I wasn't involved in the Oasis ticket sales, but I imagine it was a similar, where we just kind of watched the numbers come through, and our booking agent, I can't remember who we were using at the time, were just like, we've never seen, it crashed the system when the igloos went live, and they were just like, we've never seen this level of demand, and we had to get in one of the queue management, like they use for concerts and all that stuff, to manage the igloos. But it was nuts, and that was great. And then actually I sort of decided I wanted to do something different. I'd always set these kind of milestone goals I wanted to achieve, and sort of by 40 I wanted to experience as much in the industry and then really decide what I wanted to do. So I did hotels for 3 years.
I joined, did you? I didn't know that.
Harbour hotels, so mainly Southwest based, so independent sort of family run, had 11 hotels, and that was fascinating in terms of learning. And I'd sort of come in, was super passionate about F&B, and it was really to the F&B side. And then I remember, my first week, the owner sort of said, look, you're not going to be able to do hotels unless you learn hotels. And I know, you're here to do F&B, but you need to run 3-4 of these hotels and get into that. And that, again, I'm quite geeky with models and modelling and the mechanics. And I was, in my first few weeks, I was really frustrated to go, why aren't people as passionate about food and drink? And then you saw the numbers behind the hotels, and you're just there going, well, I totally understand why. Selling
it's
2
like
rooms,
a supplementary service for
F&B.
Exactly.
It's so much effort for so little payoff, and that sort of lesson of focus on what's important. Selling 2 rooms is the same as doing 60 extra covers in a night. And so I did that for 3 years, and all the way through the pandemic. And actually, the pandemic was tough for obviously everyone in the industry, and everyone who's passionate about working and loves the industry. Sitting at home for sort of 3-4 weeks, and
horrible.
Then I remember when it was that first summer where it kind of broke and you could do stuff, and I actually went down to Padstow to help out there. They didn't have a restaurant manager, and it's obviously been sort of.
Where is it in Padstow?
It's kind of behind on the hill, overlooking the seafood restaurant.
As you come down the sharp bend.
Exactly. An absolute nightmare to try and park, and it is that really tight bend. No, there's a small car park outside the hotel,
and the access is that road, doesn't it, where the literally onto the dock.
You can go. You kept driving down. You end up as Rick Stein's got a fish and chip shop down there, and you sort of end up down there.
Literally there 2 weeks ago.
So it was there. It's lovely. I've only just. I don't know, I'm going to talk about speeding fines, but that was the nightmare down there. They had this section of road that is... I
know the bit.
It goes from 70 down to 50 for like a mile.
Just
for no reason whatsoever.
There is a reason.
And I know. I did one trip and got three separate tickets, and then I had to go to the Cornish magistrate to sort of say, look, this is really unfair.
Don't worry.
Well, we had a long conversation about, no, I can't take 9 points, and it all worked out well. But that was amazing, because I think... It's quite nice when you're sort of career where you've been director level, and that was just back to the floor. That was run the restaurant for, sort of break from furlough. There's no strategy going on. Run the restaurant for the summer, and it was a real lesson for me that I think served well in terms of...
And also the West, I don't know what it is about the West, working in the West. The latter part of my career, I spent all in the West. And I really, the people, I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. I think the people who I work with were more loyal. I don't want to say harder working, that's not fair, but different ethics, I suppose.
Throughout all my time in hospitality, when you get sort of team engagement surveys, North and the West are always the highest by a mile in terms of guest experience,
London, not so good.
Team satisfaction, much more challenging. I mean, obviously it's a much more transient city, and there's much more competition, but you meet these amazing teams, who've been there years and years. And
generations of families in Dorset. I had I think mother, daughter, grandma in one restaurant. It was mental.
I love all those stories though. It makes your life easier because you don't have to force the culture. It's just there naturally as well. And
and then it's just about putting great leaders in front of these people. Yeah. But, no, it's fantastic. And after did you go to, and then you were...
Harbour was then Bill's.
Really?
So that was, I did Harbour up until 2021, and then joined Bill's. Joined Bill's as ops director, and then did a year at ops director, which is probably the best sort of cheat mode for being an MD ever, to get a year in the trenches, working with the teams.
And what trenches you would have walked into, I imagine, in 2021.
It was everyone had a tough exit from COVID as well, but it was there was lots to do. But what was really encouraging was, I came into it with open eyes. I'd always loved Bill's as a brand, similar to your story actually with Carluccio's in Cardiff. When Bill's opened probably a year and a half after we'd been running the Jamie's in Cardiff.
The corner one.
Yeah, on the corner there, which is still there, still
cracking
fantastically. It was still in our top 3. It's a great
really?
site. Yeah.
Always full.
Yeah, it is. It does. And then obviously sort of match days and events and stuff. Cardiff's just a good town. Like, well, you know.
Yes, 15 years still haven't left yet, but yeah.
But it's always done well. But I remember going in there sort of, day 3, day 4, because you check out the new places. And that jealousy of going, how do they find so many nice people? They hadn't poached any of our team, which was lovely.
Yeah.
They found some really, really nice people. And it was exactly the same walking back in 2021, where you went, there was lots to work on and lots to do. But the grassroots was there. There were, you sort of go into the restaurant, and I was expecting to be shocked and just going, right, there's definitely some opportunity and things we need to do, but the teams are lovely. And it was then coming up with that plan as into what we're going to do to get it right.
I think Bill's always had. I've actually putting together a panel of people for this event we do, Brewdog, and it's about magic dust, the differentiator between why and the haves and the have-nots, right, in terms of restaurant brands, and it's never about how hard you work. It's more about, there's something about these brands, and I think Bill's was one of them when they popped up around the college era when we were back in doing our old roles. There was something about the earthiness of them, and they felt like a community restaurant, because that's what they were born from, right?
Yeah, totally. And Bill's, to use that sort of superhero analogy, it's got such an amazing, authentic origin story in Bill. Who's still involved with the business.
Is he still?
Yeah. Still
not like Antonio just turns up for his whiskey and his facts.
No. Bill's, now he's sort of less involved in the ops side day to day, but so much involved in design, interiors, which is something he's really, really passionate, look and feel. And then he's a really good cultural benchmark for us in terms of, he is a incredibly kind, generous, friendly guy. And that's been one of the easy steps, is just capturing that, and it's always had it. It's always been there, and it's so authentic because he's there, and you sort of we do heritage days now where all new managers, when they join, they go down to Lewis and spend a day with Bill, and it's that it's like we used to have at Jamie's, it's that instant win, because they all come back saying, I get it, to be able to do that in your first week and go, I get what you're trying to say.
For anybody listening, I think, who've got a restaurant brand or whatever you're doing, getting someone to be excited about you and your brand is so simple if you get it right in the first month. Yeah. Hard Rock sends to it's a bit sends to the States or whatever, but still, even Ask Restaurants when I started there, it was all about the culture and understanding Adam and Sam at the start. And it's just that and Carluccio sent us to Italy on wine trips and all the kind of stuff you would have experienced. I was like, I'd run through walls for them.
Yeah,
do you know
totally.
What I mean? And maybe that's my character, but I think you're the same.
No,
right?
but
I think once, a lot of people
you're in, you're in. Yeah. Like in terms of, and we've spoken a lot about loyalty, and there's no question that now teams ask more questions for all the right reasons, and they're harder to win trust. But to get them to have that in our locker in Bill's is to be able to go totally authentic, totally genuine. When we say everyone leaves happy, and it could look like something just companies say and it's a mission statement, but then you go and spend that day and you meet Bill and you go, oh no, they totally. That is what's demonstrated.
It's that visualization of reality, isn't it? When you get to meet the guy. That's why I loved in the pod, because you meet these people behind the brands and the people who work in the brands, and you're like, okay, I get it. This is why they are like they are, because they're led by this person, or because they built this kind of tech, or whatever it might be. So it's super interesting for me to understand the why behind the what. And I think, you've probably been like that as well, right? Obsessing with why did we do that? I was like that. I was that kid.
Oh, totally. And it's really interesting because we. One of the big things when we sort of took the MD role is you'd seen all the opportunities and the things you want to tweak and the changes you want to make. And it's always that, I think, problem or challenge with, a legacy brand, a brand that's been around for over 15 or 20 years now.
Really? Oh my God, I feel old.
Since I know, it's scary, isn't it? But you go, we're going to have to do this much change. And as I'm sure lots of people have said before, change is difficult to get buy-in from teams. Operators, waiters, GMs, chefs, they are successful because they come up with a system and they work and they follow that routine, and consistency is absolutely key, especially in casual dining. And then you're going, we want to do all the, we had a list of 287 things we wanted to implement in the next 12 months. And
was that like were you serious? 200?
Yeah.
Right,
it was terrible. We sat down in myself and the senior team, and you sort of, when I got the MD role, sat down with Ben, the ops director, and the rest of the senior team, people director, marketing director, and he said, right, let's get forensic on every aspect of the business and say, what could we do better? This is what we want to achieve in the next 18 months. And then it was one of those, we thought it'd be like 15, 20 things.
Yeah, me too.
And then it just started spiraling because you start talking about things, and then one thing leads to another, and it was the menu, it was how long we served breakfast and brunch for, it was uniforms, it was absolutely then you start getting into the financials, and you sort of go through who's this supplier, what do we pay them for, what do they do, how do we do this? And it was what started as a 3-hour meeting ended up being 2 days, and then we're sort of there going, right, so let's prioritize it. And then there was a lot of introduction of technology and changes for there, in terms of, I think we were behind the curve on where we should be with our booking system and delivery, and it just handhelds and ordering,
the ecosystem of
what everyone else is doing.
I think it's really interesting, because that's the bit that I think a lot of people want to tackle but find it difficult. Where do you start? Type thing, because you look at it and go, it's kind of like a deep breath. It's like, like that's a lot, because actually that tech piece touches your customers and your staff. And it's like, ooh.
And it would be so simple to unsettle the teams and just knock over the business with saying, we're introducing all of this, and within a week it's a totally different
and probably
business.
easier not to, right?
Just leave it. It's expensive, it comes with risk, they might not be buying, and some of these things actually, especially with tech, Bill's had tried before, and it had been introduced and not worked for whatever reason before my time, so I can't say. And so it was, no, that doesn't work for us. And we're there going, but everyone's doing it. There's something in this. And so we knew we wanted to make this amount of change. And I think what was then really important was having this core message and really go, if the teams didn't come with us, we lost, and to go from there. And then we doubled down on the looking after the teams and everyone leaves happy in the guest journey, and we sort of pivoted and we changed the bonus schemes, the incentives, to go, let's make it all about guest satisfaction and the guests having a good time. And then we've got all these tools. They're going to help you give a better guest experience and look after your teams better and manage your business.
It's a great way to do it.
Yeah, and alongside that, we were like, we have to find the gnarliest, grisliest GMs in the business, the ones who are always like, I don't need this in my business. And they can be the trials, and let's work with them, because if they end up being the ambassadors, a GM who's met me once or twice is always, it's so easy to go, no, this is not going to work for us, you don't understand our business. Whereas if it's a peer who's like, no, seriously, I was skeptical, cynical, but you should try it because it works, and this is when this happens, does this, and this is what the team said. And it was, and we did it. We did all these kind of actions over that 18 months. And what was lovely, I was genuinely nervous because it was a huge amount of change.
Yeah, and a lot on you, I suppose, because you're in your new role. You're saying we're doing, putting your flag in the sand.
When we get to all this. And I was incredibly lucky as well, though, because I'd had that year.
Yeah.
And so there was trust, because I'd run a region, and so the GM's sort of going, no, he does get it. Like
he's been there, man.
Yeah,
the Vietnam theory.
Exactly.
You don't know, man. You went there.
No, they do understand what I'm talking about. And the other thing was that the senior team that we put together that had been tweaked, and the team. Sasha, who runs our new systems and tech, she was a GM. She was a GM for 5 years.
But how cool is that you didn't go outside the business?
Yeah, we've really stuck to that. That's been really, because the honest answer is the talent. Donna, we was supervisor when I first started. She's now head of reservations. The talent was there, but it was that thing of talking to people and getting to know them and finding out what they're passionate about, and then fanning the flames. And they were totally bought into Bill's and to the business. But they needed a new challenge. That they'd kind of, they'd been through a lot of change, and to go from there. And it was the same with, the ops team. The entire senior ops team, as Ben, the op director, the RDs, they're collective like 100 years bills. They've done 10 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years. So a lot of that kind of, there was trust with this kind of,
like a trepidation.
Yeah.
It's PTSD, isn't it? It really is. You've been through, I think anybody who's operated in any kind of mid-market, casual dining brand, whatever you want to, premium dine, whatever, however you want to box it up, you go through purple patches, right? When things are amazing, everyone's great. But you do have tough times just because of the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Because the way the world works, unfortunately, hospitality feels it first.
No, definitely.
When there's bad times, it's
and you
coming for
see
us.
those changes. And I think, we've been lucky, and it's been part of a plan in terms of we've had a really good run, but you always get those times, don't you? And I think what you've seen before is when those times hit, the hard times, not to panic, not to go, because you can suddenly get into, people start sniping. It always
cutting whatever, things.
I always remember being as ops director, which I still maintain is probably the hardest job in hospitality, in terms of your front line, you're strategic, you're still getting in the neck, but everything feeds down to you, doesn't it? It comes down to you.
It's the maddest role ever, isn't it?
I'm glad I'm doing the F&D
You said that with a smile.
Because I had 12 years as an op director, but it's I think you're responsible for everything. You're so heavily influenced. Everything rolls down ultimately to you, and then you have this huge. If you take our business, we're like any business, hospitality, we're a restaurant business. You're the voice for 98.9% of the workforce. It all, the pyramid comes up to you, and you represent the chefs. The waiters, the KPs at the top table, and then similarly, when things go wrong and sales aren't bad, it's normally the first question is, "Well, it's ops. What's happening? What's?"
God, I haven't heard that phrase for ages. I felt a bit sick then. It's ops, and I think ops directors. The problem with ops directors, 1% of the time you get some kudos, right?
Yeah.
But 99% of the time, it's your fault.
Yeah, totally. It's
a really hard place to be.
I couldn't agree.
But kudos to all those guys and girls doing it, because that role, it didn't break me, but it was taking me there, because if you really care, it's a very hard role to be in, because you've got to be thick-skinned and you've got to be able to take the rough with the smooth. And I think I struggle with that a little bit, because I just wanted to win all the time.
Yeah.
And when you don't, when one little region or one little site isn't winning out of your 99, you're failing.
No, it's emotionally, psychologically, it's really tough role, because you want to win naturally in hospitality. I think most people who come through, whether that's through the back of house or the front of house, you're in it because you like making people happy. That's your engine. Your engine. Yeah, it is totally. And no industry that I know of has the opportunity to, if you're a chef, and go back to those Jamie's, you're cooking 600 meals a day. If they're all great and people are coming up and saying, "Chef, that was amazing, that was delicious, loved it." Same as a waiter. 100 people a day can say to you, "That was fantastic, I loved it." I don't know an instant gratification role that I can think of.
And sometimes give you money with it.
Yeah, that's an added bonus as well.
Yeah, my son is learning that right now on his trunk. He's the happiest kid in the world. Yeah, he's made $4,000 in the summer.
Oof.
And he's a part-time waiter.
That's amazing.
At 17.
I know.
It's insane.
I do miss.
Are you going back on the floor?
No. But I do miss it. I genuinely do miss it for that reason.
My friend.
Well, you say that, but every time I'm sort of forced to do it, I've got to watch what I say, because they'll be
like, okay,
next
fine. Next Monday, you're on the line.
But it's that was what was lovely actually before doing the builds, of genuinely being back on the floor and remembering how hard it is. One of the things. Again, you're going to watch and say, being a general manager now is, I'd say, I'm not going to put a number on it, 5 to 10 times harder than when I was a GM. The amount of systems, talking about tech, you now have to manage, and they're all intricate. The tweaks to a booking system that you can make, if you do it really well, where you're sort of dynamic in the week, and those GMs who are really good, well, they'll kind of look at their sales forecast and then look at what they got booked in and tweak all that. And then you've got your health and safety system. It's tough as well.
It's really interesting. We had a panel this morning and we talked, and there were some product owners on the panel, and the head of people from Pastor Evangelist, Alev, legend, just really, really cool girl. But we were chatting about the fact that the tech community lose the optics of what's going on in the operations community, and the problem is, and it's not a dig, it's normal, right? They're not working in it, they don't know.
No.
But that GM role is the role, right?
100%.
That if you're going to sell in or build a product, build it for those guys, because they're the ones who touch it every day. You have to bloody do write a rota for 4 weeks, do whatever, do a budget, do this, do that, health and safety, fridge checks. You pick one, right? But they're doing all that, and they've got to go run their shift and make sure everyone's doing it, and make sure these people turn up. And
there's no question, and a more demanding workforce for all the right reasons as well. Virtuous. In terms of it's tough. It's definitely tough, and
I think that's
full of respect.
We should put all the tech guys who make product in a shift instead.
No, you should. That's been interesting in our journey, though, talking about tech, is that we've introduced a lot in the last 2-3 years, whether that's QR codes, kiosks.
Kiosks, I never thought I'd see that.
Yeah.
That's great. We'll talk about it.
It's... No, we found them super interesting. But what's been really interesting with the tech providers is those tech providers that, we've met loads of people, and I'm sure it's the same with most operators. You get spammed. Your email, if I go on LinkedIn, there's always someone who's come up with a new system.
Just don't go on there, mate.
That will solve this problem or that problem. No, I know. But what's been really interesting meeting those is we always have gone for the two things. One is who understands the brand and what we're trying to achieve, and are able to be fluid. The white label product that just gets rebadged, that we're like, but we like it to do this, or can we do that? It's in the development program, it's in the development pathway.
The roadmap.
Yeah, the roadmap word. Then that doesn't work, as opposed to actually we can see that's really important for you and actually put a date on it. That's been important, but it's that understanding of operations and what the teams need, and those we've got some fantastic partners now who understand us, and they're there for openings. They're there
and it's
working
hard work
with the
for them,
teams.
right? To do
gotcha.
That. Yeah,
did
that come across your headphones?
Yeah, it did. Don't know what that was.
It was on it. Sorry.
And that's been really impressive, and actually that's been the difference in terms of who we've wanted to work with.
Yeah.
Because when they're there in the front line and they're sort of saying back to us, I understand the frustrations from your team, and they actually have relationships. They can say, I spoke to this GM in Newbury, and they were saying A, B, and C, and what do you think about this? That's so important for the tech companies, I think, to have that personal relationship.
And it's really interesting. It's not a dig as such or anything like that, but I think it's probably the most difficult industry to sell into because of that intricacy that they don't see and understand. And I like you're saying, GMs working now compared to when we were GMs are very different.
Totally.
We controlled our people, our food. Maybe some maintenance used to be the biggest thing probably on my list outside of those two.
Totally.
But now I imagine it's
so much.
Imagine online ordering when I just can't even. Like QR codes back in Carluccio's just seems crazy, but it would be there, right?
The stress though of I always remember the only real sort of back in the day was the booking system when we went. I missed the day of the old school book, but when it went from the book to a bookings platform, and if that went down, that ruins your day. Yeah. But now there's 5, 6, 7 different. The QR code doesn't link, discount code doesn't work, booking system, doesn't link with this, integrations, blah blah blah, left, right, and centre. It's so tough.
And it's literally what it's really. It fills my cup a little bit, because the reason we started, if we strip back all the reasons to Tech on Toast things we do, we came to help that problem to simplify the way it works for operators, and we're in the middle of building something to do that. But kudos to all those guys, and really, what all you want to do is have a great time and look after their people, right? That's all you want. And in the middle of all that, there's all of this craziness.
And that's been the big sell with the tech, is that this, the looking at the future, and certainly us as a brand and as a business, people will never not be the most important thing to me personally and to the business. And that's most people in hospitality say that. But we've got to be aware that the industry's changing. You're seeing that with the rapid growth of QSR, delivery, of obviously expanding rapidly. I think the most interesting thing, though, is how the guest profile is changing in terms of there has never been a more diverse guest in terms of their needs, whether that's allergens, dietary, how they want to order. Some are totally would prefer to order through technology and use that and not have that interaction, whereas you can have next on the sex table the polar opposite. To go, I will not touch.
And do you know what's even more complex? I actually think that person who's ordering changes that complexity depending on how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Literally, so if I'm dining here, if I'm eating here at Brewdog on a working day when I'm podcasting, I'll go through the online ordering, I'll go through the table ordering, because I don't really want to kind of hang out with anyone, I just want to work.
Yeah.
But on another day here with a friend, I'll definitely want to wait to chat to and kind of thing. So I agree. I think the customer's making it super complicated.
Totally.
And the problem we have is that the tech is there to fix that problem. But there's a million things in between that need to happen.
I think the journey we've been on is to go, these sort of, we started probably a year ago saying what does build look like in 2025, 2026, and then having that as the sort of milestone and what we want to work. And the honest answer for us, it's you need to give the guest all the options and then leave it up to them. In terms of if they want to have full waiter service with the same as we've spoken about, really well-informed, friendly, engaging waiters, that's an option as well. If they'd like to order through QR code, if they'd like to go to the bar, if they'd like to use, and then these other, kiosks have been really interesting for us, because the kiosk came about from, we knew we wanted to look at different service styles, and wanting to have, the option of QR code or order at the bar. But then you were looking at that problem, which happens quite a few places. We have to order at the bar, even looking at our sort of local pub. A lot of people, depending on day of the week, demographic, want to order at the bar, and then you're 5 deep at the bar. You've got all the QR codes. You've got an area where you can have table service as well. But how do you take the pressure off the bar and the bartender? And that was these kiosks, much more subtle than sort of the big.
Yeah, we're not talking
station.
McDonald's.
No. These are sort of
size of a
tabletop, like an iPad Mini.
Yes,
sort of,
iPad Mini,
that just sit on there, and it just gives you the option to go.
But who would have said bills and kiosks if you told me that 4 years ago? You would have laughed, right?
No, totally.
No way.
It was.
But it makes
we
sense.
were very organic, very rustic. But I think you can do it. Yeah, and that's the whole. And when you see them, they're very subtle. They sit on the bar. They're not sort of big garish barriers, and they are there to use them if you want to. It's not, the bar team won't ever say you go up to order and he'll say, order on the kiosk, please. It's not that at all. It's just there as an option. If you're going up to order a couple of pints and you're in a rush and there's 2 people ordering, for a table of 11, you can just put your table number in, put your beers in, go and sit down, and we'll bring them over to you. So it's presenting all those options, and I think that's definitely going to be the direction of travel for us.
And have you got how much data are you getting, I suppose, in terms of how that's working for you? We did a case study with you. I'm playing here. We did a case study with you recently, but I was really shocked at some of the numbers you were.
We've not done a hard sell on any of it. It's sort of very much presented it. Newbury and St Albans is a sort of cafe bar concept, slightly different in terms of there are clear
Lovely
zones
place.
where you have to use it, and the design sort of fits in. But actually, we're opening 2 sites before Christmas, so Milton Keynes and Street, and they're very much
Before
hybrids.
Christmas.
Yeah. Just November. We've got 2 openings in November. It should be good.
Of course you have.
Yeah, it should be good just to get that going.
Well, Street is that near Bristol?
Clark's Village. Yeah, down in Somerset.
Yeah, we did one there.
So, there was
Carnage, Christmas as well. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. It's one of those.
Like Cheshire Oaks, that type of vibe,
a sort of a retail park.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot round for the 20 miles around it, so it's the place to go.
Yeah, it's very much a camp. We did really. I don't know. I think we opened it in. I can't remember now, but I remember doing. It was under my patch at that point. But yeah, it was busy.
I'm really excited about that, and then they do some really cool stuff. Like they have the ice rink at they do in Cardiff at Winter Wonderland and all that stuff. They do a big ice rink down there, and we'll be open beginning of December. So looking forward, and then Milton Keynes as well. So that's going to be good.
Thanks for opening in December.
Yeah, I know.
It's so weird opening that time of year, right? Because you come out the blocks, you're busy, new opening. Plus you've got the Christmas push, and you're in a shopping district.
Yeah.
So it's going to be all of that and above. Thank you, boss.
We are building up, like when you sort of build up your Avengers team ready to go down and support. It's to say not only have got the whole team there and the opening team. There's a support team as well, because
they'll absolutely love it. I think it'd be amazing because you've only got so much capacity anyway, right? You're full.
Yeah.
I used to that phrase. I used to say to openings people all the time. When you're full, you're full. Yeah, but Chris, there's 400 people waiting outside. But it's when you come to January, it's such a weird come down off the back of those things. But you might not, because you're going to.
I think it's January sales. January's always quite good for us anyway. We always do quite a deep sort of January offer, and January's. It's never busy anywhere, but we tend to have quite a good back, because Christmas is it's big for everyone.
Yeah.
But Christmas is massive for us, and there's always quite a decent bounce back.
Could you do what we call shelf and book? Do you do like sauces and all that kind of stuff as well? Bills, do you do like merchandise?
Like merchandise? No, Bills used to.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? They used to have a little section.
Yeah, very much used to do kind of olives, Bill's chili jam.
That's right.
I think there's still a few of those kicking about.
I used to love that part. That was Carlucci's at Christmas, right? So
yeah. You guys, Panettones were just.
We used to open pop-up shops and cribs and all over the place, but used to make a fortune.
Yeah. Well, we introduced it actually, probably off the back of your success in Carluccio's. Was it Damien? He used to work
Damien
in
Budding, yeah.
And he worked.
He came to Jamie's.
Yeah. And we introduced the merchandise.
That wasn't popular.
It was tough as a GM.
That went down. I mean when he went to Jamie's.
Yeah, well, I can imagine the internal
Simon
politics.
Kossoff was not happy. But yeah, it was interesting.
But we did that, and merchandise, I think, is one of those. We were talking about it actually in terms of looking next to. I think if you do it, you've got to go full investment. It's got to be brilliant.
Yeah, it's got to be a full shelf.
Full shelf, always well stocked, great products and all that stuff. And we've got enough sort of bubbling under at the
Chris,
moment.
shut up.
So yeah.
We're opening
we
to
don't
at
need to look at that. But it fits so well with the brand, and it did.
It really does.
Well.
Because as I said at the start, you look at Clarkson's Farm at the moment.
Yeah.
It's doing so well on Amazon, all that kind of. And he's built his little shop.
Yeah,
He's got
it's
his
a little
pub.
deli.
I think it's really interesting, and I do think there's, as you mentioned, the experiential market and buying and brands you love being able to be part of it is super important these days. So yeah, when you do
I think it's one of those watch this space.
Yeah. He's off
take some advice.
It's going to give over.
You're
Guess
walk,
what, guys?
Yeah.
In your new site at Christmas, I built you a deli.
I wouldn't do that. We have enough on the plate at the moment. But
and the tech journey's been interesting, right? Because you've tried all this stuff, and it's part of your 287 things.
Yeah. Was it a huge part?
It was it, and I think. Are you happy with the results, or what have you learned from the results? I suppose because that's this isn't about the product names or any of those people. It's more about are Bills benefiting, or do you feel like your people or your guests are benefiting?
Yeah. So I think there's sort of all those different levels of tech. From if you take the first real thing to attack was reservations.
Yeah.
We're using a bookings platform that's quite popular in a number of restaurants.
Well done.
As well. But we and it's great, and we're still using them now. But we had that very sort of specific issue where you could book online up to 6, and then over 6 you'd phone a res team.
Yeah.
And then most people. Nearly it was 42% actually at the time were booking through phoning up the reservations team. But we had a real problem with capacity in terms of at 10:30 on a Saturday. That's when most people sort of wake up, say let's go to Bill's, have some brunch, go shopping, whatever, and we couldn't cope with demand. You were seeing that was so much demand in terms of calls coming through, but we weren't able to process that volume of bookings. And then Christmas, I think the first Christmas doing there was a really similar issue, and that was a sort of first big call for me. Was we were talking about putting in an AI chatbot to rather than sort of phone someone up, it was all done through the chatbot. No demand issues, but super intuitive in terms of we ran it as a trial, we saw all the questions that people were asking, and now it's really good. If you want to find out if you can bring in your dog or see the kids menu and all that stuff, you type it in, it feels like someone's talking to you. And that was bookings went up 36% year one just from that change there. And there was quite a lot of, I was super nervous that day when we sort of turned off the phone lines and went, we're doing it all through this online chatbot, and let's see how it goes. And it was some tense moments, but it was it's the technology is there, and that's the whole point. It was you could justify it because the guest experience is better. You are now able to book up to 20 people. You can book your parties. You can see all the menus you want. There's no demand issues. You don't struggle to get through or get the answer you want.
It's interesting because I think people forget sometimes the pressure on the person making that decision.
Yeah.
As you were saying, I was like, Jesus, that's a big one because you can get it wrong, and quite innocently get it wrong, because you've got no real evidence, have you, to prove either way, and your peers, competitors are probably not going to give you too much information around what they're having success over. So it really is a kind of not a guess, but not far off.
No, it's got to be an educator. Yeah. Well, I think another thing that's sort of super proud of is it's all been, the decisions we've made have been data-based.
Yeah.
And the importance of data. I mean, everyone speaks about it now, but hospitality's got a natural leaning to make decisions based on preference and anecdote. You see that quite a lot. I like this, therefore, I've got this feeling. And great if that's a starting point for something you think you should do. But there are now reams and reams of data, and actually introducing really good CRM systems as we've now got. We've never had so much more information from what our guests want, why they want it, what to do, and being super analytical with that information. We did a massive menu change in 2022, very much taking, what's Bills, why do people come to us, what do they like, what dishes they like, what do they want to see, what's the price point that they're happy to pay, what's this work in the market, and not doing it on anecdote and gut and sentiment and nostalgia, but really making big data-led decisions and letting that form the basis of the menu and then working through that. That's been really useful. And everything the data was saying, it's the same with the introduction of QR. It's been around for ages. QR code. Everyone
like Madonna just keeps reforming and coming back.
Exactly. But then looking at actually what the guest wants, and we've done those tweaks. So it's why we did the trials of the cafe bars, where you sort of said we went into it saying this is how we'd like it to work, and actually the guest said no, we want all the options everywhere. We don't, want a space where it's just QR code here or just table service here.
Yeah, because you're making us do something. You're forcing us into a place. Yeah.
And it's having to make. I think that's the other thing. If you're coming somewhere to relax, you don't want to make so many decisions. There's something I've always found it. and maybe I'm wrong, I always have this debate with waiters and hosts in terms of, I always find it stressful when you turn up to a restaurant and someone says, where would you like to sit? So I haven't been here before. It's kind of, and then I'm sitting there with my guest. I'd like you to take me.
I was liking it going to someone's house, right, for dinner.
Yeah.
You didn't walk in and say, where do you want to go? I don't know, mate. It's your house.
Yeah, exactly. do you want to come through here? Do you want to sit in the garden?
Yeah,
You tell me where to go. To take me to what you think is best.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I might, on the way, say actually, I'd love to sit
Well, that's
there.
my wife. Actually, even though you've sat us here and we've waited 27 minutes, we now want to sit in that window over there that's dirty.
Yeah. So I think it's that whole, using data to make decisions, finding the tech that understands and will work with you, but is it better for the guest? Quite often you make decisions to go, we might be solving a problem for us, but we're putting that pressure.
That's
or that
a real
experience.
easy thing to fall into, right? Isn't it? In terms of you're looking at a problem that you're having internally and it's costing you money potentially and costing you churn, maybe in people, whatever it might be, and then you make the change, you solve your problem. And then the guest and then you're losing guests, and then your other problem starts again from another angle.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's very scary.
That's just a downward spiral, and it's sort of, I think saw that a little bit in when sort of casual dining was struggling actually in the mid-teens as well. Was that a lot of those everyone was focusing on the bottom line, the cost line, and there's nowhere back from that. The product suddenly gets worse. You're not
weird,
having a good experience, and that's it. You're done.
Literally over. And Carl Lynch's went through that definitely. And we tried to rip apart our labour model mid-teens and looked at it and went, right, how do we, and we literally measured how to chop a cucumber, all this kind of stuff. And while we were doing that, no one was looking at the guests.
No.
Or the people. It was just, and it was just like this. You turn around in 6 months, like, what the hell? What happened? Even my best sites were like flailing.
Yeah.
I was like, how?
And that's it. It's a death spiral. Yeah. It's the minute you get into that. And that doesn't mean you can't be efficient and look at, but the decision needs to be. And that's why it's been really nice having this, sentiment, if you like, as a brand of everyone who's happy, is to say, we want to make this decision, and then it goes through the filters.
Yeah.
Is it going to upset the guest? Is it going to upset the team? What can we do? Let's speak to the wider team. Do we make a decision? Yes, no. What does the data say? We can make the decision. Great. Go from there. And it is a longer process, and we're lucky in terms of, there's a very clever chap who's our head of commercial finance, who constantly gets emails and texts me saying, can I have this in the next 5 minutes? And or we're thinking of doing this, and he's great. But it gives
nice
you the
that
confidence.
Got that, not CF role, but that role where someone's sense checking.
Yeah.
Your operational kind of mind, where you're saying, I think we could do this and this would make money, and he's like,
prove to me why we can't is this sort of question. It's like the sort of when you're looking at a try in rugby, it's like the on-field decision is this. Find me evidence to prove it's wrong. But he was a chef. 10 years ago, he was a breakfast chef, and so understands the business, understands the psychology of the kitchens. And so when you're making this operational, to have that filter of saying, well, the data says this, I think this will happen, and from my operational knowledge, you've got to be wary of this. It's been it allows you to make much better decisions for like the business, and it's been an exciting couple of years.
That's amazing. Look, and I could probably talk to you for 3 hours, and no one wants to hear about me and you chatting about our old days, I'm sure, anymore.
Certainly not about DIY.
No, DIY is not a good thing. No. And we're going to see you on stage again soon, aren't we? I mean, probably not before this comes up, but you're off to casual dining show on Thursday. Chat with Mr. Martin.
Yes,
is that right?
Sit with Mr. Martin, talk about all things bills and what's got coming. I'd love whiskey's my weak spot.
Oh, is that your weak spot?
Yeah.
You look like a whiskey guy.
Yeah,
I pulled that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well done. Well, you've still got that waiter's intuition to go, I know what this chap is like.
Slide down the bar.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. And we look forward to seeing it. We came across to see you in Reading and St Albans of the week. Lovely sites, and as I said, lovely people. And I think what you're doing, and there's some exciting stuff coming up. Right, I joke about the November openings, but I'm sure it'll be brilliant.
I can't wait. But it's a new look. It's a sort of new feel for Bills. It's that new iteration of we haven't lost any of the old eclectic crazy look, but it's I'm really excited about that.
And the food that we had in Reading, is it the same offer?
Yeah,
fantastic.
Same menu. It's across the board, and it's super exciting time. So really enjoying it.
Look, and if anyone wants to stalk you on LinkedIn, well, they're already doing it. But
they really are.
What he wants to say is stop. But you can see him at Casual Dining, just heckle him from the crowd. And if not, I'm trying to convince him to do service in February here, sitting alongside Mr. Brown and the Brewdog guys.
Say no,
you're on the podcast, so you can't say no. So it'd be great to have you here for that, and we'll all meet you then. But Tom James, thank you very much, mate. I appreciate you coming at the end of your day, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.